everybody fails in their life at one time or another. I don't care who you are, you're going to fail. You look at the most successful people that you know, whoever they are, and you're looking at the people that fail the most. The reason they fail the most is because they're out there trying the most. The ones that try the most are the ones that fail the most. Does anybody here remember Babe Ruth? Babe Ruth, he's not a failure, is he? Babe Ruth is one of the strikeout kings of all time. But you don't think of him as a failure. What about the light bulb? Thomas Edison failed 1,500 times before he invented the light bulb. But you don't think of Thomas Edison as a failure, do you? Of course, it's a good thing he invented the light bulb, too. Otherwise, you'd be watching TV in the dark. But everybody fails in their life. I'm going to kind of let that just settle down out there. Maybe it'll come back around in just a minute. Everybody fails in their life. I played football at Auburn for 2 years without a scholarship. Tom Jones, the freshman coach, got the head coaching job at Troy State University and offered me a scholarship to go to Troy, and I turned him down because that's not what I wanted to do. He came back to me and offered to me 3 or 4 different times, and finally I said, well, why not? I'll go to Troy, and if I don't like it, I can always come back to Auburn. Well, I stayed 8 months and left at Troy, and I got to tell you, it doesn't give me a lot of satisfaction to tell you about something that I failed at, but I do so that you might benefit from my experience. I went to Troy with the thinking in mind that, well, if it doesn't work out, I can always go back to Auburn. And when you do that, if the first time something goes wrong, you say, well, I didn't think this would work out, and you leave. Folks, whether it's your job or what else, you've got to get involved and you've got to be committed. That's the only way you'll ever make it. You cannot be halfway and be successful. Marriage is the same way. The first year of my life, or the first year of my marriage, was the worst year of my life until the second, which was worse than the first. I didn't want to be married. I'm telling you. The third year of my marriage, I made a commitment to my marriage, and I can tell you 11 years later, we've been married 15 years this year, I have never, ever once thought about leaving my wife. Now, I've thought about murder on several occasions, but I hadn't thought about once about leaving my wife. But it's just a question of what you're looking for. You can find 100 things to dislike about your wife, your kids, your job, your school, your car, your mama, your dad, or whatever. Or you can find 100 things to like about them. And that's the key. You can find 100 things to dislike, or you can find 100 things to like. It's just a matter of what you're looking for. Everything's not always going to be rosy either. Take my wife, for instance. Now, I'm a pretty optimistic kind of guy. I came home from work the other day, and I was downstairs. We got a basement. I was downstairs in the basement playing and loving on our little dog down there. And she came down the steps. She'd been teaching school that day, and evidently had a pretty rough day. She looked kind of bad, and she come down the steps about halfway down, and she says, I think you love that dog more than you love me. Now, here was a potential problem, folks. If you're not married, I can tell you. But with a little humor, I said, well, honey, darling, if you'd greet me licking my face and wagging your tail, I might just show you just a little more attention. So there is a way out of everything. But, I think my wife, Sandra, I love her to death. Some of you guys know her. She's a great gal. I don't know how she's involved in it, but she's involved in the savings and loan crisis somehow. I don't know how, but she is. She has yet to this day to ever balance a checkbook. Man, we've been married 15 years, and she ain't never balanced a checkbook. I don't think she ever will. Last week she came in and she threw the checkbook down on my desk there. She said, all right, big boy, I got the checkbook balanced. You check it now. And I didn't even look at it. I said, baby, I want to tell you, that makes me so excited. I just can't tell you how excited I am that you balanced this checkbook. I've been trying for 15 years, and it just makes me so proud. And I started picking it up and started thumbing through the checkbook, and it looked pretty good until I got down to the last entry, and it said ESP $38. I said, Sandra, ESP 38, what is this? Oh, error someplace. I'm telling you, there are things in life you need to know for certain. Where are you going? Where are you headed? If you suddenly arrived at success, would you even know it? As I pause to think of something that sets men apart, it seems to me that goals in life must be the place to start. Imagine playing football on an unmarked field of green. Not a goal line to be sought, not a goal post to be seen. It would be an endless battle where there's nothing to be gained, not a thing to strive for, not a score to be attained. We must have purpose in our lives, for the flame that warms the soul is an everlasting vision. Every man must have his goal. You got to have goals. You got to have goals to be successful. Saturday, everybody's in the stands. The football team runs out on the field, and they're looking around. There's no goal post. There's no yard markers. There's no end zone. Kids say, Coach, where do you want me to throw it? Where do you want me to run it? Where do you want me to kick it? Coach says, man, it don't matter. Just throw it. Just run it. Just kick it. Now, you say, that's the craziest thing I ever heard in my life. You can't play football without a goal post and goal lines. You can't play basketball without a backboard and a hoop. And you can't even go home tonight if you ain't got an idea how you're going home. And I can guarantee you one thing, friends, you'll never succeed in life if you don't have some goals. I was floating down the Mississippi River in a paddle boat at the 87 Sugar Bowl with a bunch of Auburn people. It was a dark night, heavy fog, and we were going at what I thought was a pretty fast rate given the circumstances. I don't usually get too concerned about something like that, but it did bother me a little bit. So I went up to where the captain was. I said, "Sir, we seem to be going pretty fast down this river. It's pitch black dark outside, heavy fog. Do you know where all the stumps, the roots, the snags are in this river?" He said, "No, sir." Well, buddy, my heart almost sank. But then he reassured me by saying, "But sir, I know where the channel is." Boy, I could have kissed him right there. I know where the channel is. Don't worry about the roots, the snags, the logs, the stumps. Just keep it in the channel and stay on course and you'll be successful. You got to have goals, folks. You got to know where you're going. You got to keep it in the channel and you got to be creative. This football team got beat. The halfback on the losing team got on a train. Pretty soon the official that made the call that he swore beat him got on and sat down right beside him and the train took off. There was nobody else in the train. A little while later the train stopped at a little country junction and this grandmother and her gorgeous granddaughter, she got on the train and sat down right across from the halfback and the official. And the train took off. The halfback stealing glances at the pretty girl when all of a sudden the train shot into a dark tunnel. There were no lights in the train and no lights in the tunnel. And there in that pitch black darkness there was a sound of a loud kiss and a loud slap. And the train shot back out in the daylight. And that grandmother, she was so proud. She was proud that she had a granddaughter pretty enough to get a kiss from a perfect stranger, but she was also proud that the girl was nice enough to slap the guy. Now the granddaughter, she thought that this halfback had leaned across the aisle, tried to kiss her and missed and kissed her grandmother and gotten slapped. She didn't know what had happened, but the official, on the other hand, he was sure he knew what happened. He knew that this halfback had leaned across the aisle, kissed the pretty girl, and she, being the nice girl that she was, had swung and missed and hit him, the official, right in the face. But the halfback, that halfback, he was a sharp guy. He was the one that knew what happened. When that train went into that dark tunnel, he had just leaned across the aisle, kissed the back of his hand, and just slapped the fire out of that official. Did he have a goal? Clearly defined. Problem solver? You bet. Man of action, the best creative thinker and have friends. You got to have goals. You got to have goals, and you got to be able to communicate those goals. No matter how good the plan is, if you don't take the plan and run with it, it's no good. You got to be able to communicate those goals, and communication is a problem. I'm going to tell you, communication is a real problem. I've got a buddy of mine over in Augusta who he talks. He curls his mouth on a half moon and talks like this. And he says, "Bob, I had me a hardware store over there in Augusta, and I was doing pretty good." He said, so I was doing so good, I thought I'd put me in a little furniture business right next to it, and I did. He said, "Man," I started selling furniture right and left. He said, "You ain't never seen nothing like it in your life." He said, "Matter of fact, I sold so much furniture, I won me this free trip to Paris, France." He said, "And I went over there, Bob, and I ain't never seen nothing like it in all my life." He said, "I've seen all them art museums, all those beautiful paintings and those places that you eat out and the Eiffel Tower." He said, "But the thing that I remember most about Paris," he said, "one afternoon I was sitting in this bistro having me a cool one." He said, "And the prettiest lady I have ever seen in my life came up and sat down on a stool next to me and started talking to me, and I couldn't understand a word she was saying. So I started talking to her, and I'm talking real plain too, and she couldn't understand a word I was saying. So I got a little frustrated, so I picked me up a cocktail napkin, I drawed a picture of a glass on it, she nodded her head, so I ordered us a drink. I had a couple of drinks, and I said, So I picked up another cocktail napkin, and I drawed a picture of two people dancing, and she nodded her head, so we got up and danced. We'd dance a while, and we'd drink a while. We'd dance a while, and we'd drink a while. Well, by now, she's getting pretty well looped. We went back over to the table, and she picked up a cocktail napkin. She picked it up. She drawed a picture of a bed and a nightstand and a lamp on it. He said, Bob, I ain't figured out yet how that woman knowed I was in the furniture business. Sometimes communication can go the wrong way. John Carlson. Any of y'all ever heard of John Carlson? John Carlson wrote a book. He was president of SAS Airlines. He wrote a book. And in that book, he said that his world-class airline would carry 10 million customers this year. And each one of those 10 million customers, on average, will come in contact with 5 SAS airline employees. And each encounter will be brief, maybe 15 seconds in duration. And yet, it is in those 15 seconds that the customers of SAS Airlines will determine whether they are a world-class carrier or just another run-of-the-mill airline. And Mr. Carlson calls those brief encounters moments of truth. We all have moments of truth. Every time you have any kind of doings with anybody else, and that's a moment of truth. Of course, one of my favorite moments of truth is last December. The score was 30-20. I think I remember that as a pretty good moment of truth against Alabama. I like that. But we all have moments of truth, and you have to address them as you get to them and go forward. But I got to tell you, I'm a little concerned about our country. We have become a nation of average Americans. Everybody wants everybody else to be average or mediocre. There's no more drive. There's no more kill to be number one, to be the best. We've almost lost the automobile industry, the hotel industry, the computer industry, just because we've lost that drive to be the best we can be. It disturbs me, and I'll tell you something that really grinds on me, is I see somebody, I say, how you doing? Oh, I'm okay under the circumstances. How's business? Oh, business is okay under the circumstances. Friends, this great nation we live in was not built by people who lived under the circumstances. If they didn't like the circumstances, they changed the circumstances and they fixed them the way they want them to be. And that's the only way you'll be successful is to change the circumstances and to move forward. You cannot be pretty good and be successful. You cannot be mediocre and be successful. You got to be the best that you can be. Give it your best shot every time out of the chute if you're going to be successful. Charles Osgood read a poem on TV not long ago I'd like to share with you. There once was a pretty good student who sat in a pretty good class, who was taught by a pretty good teacher who always let pretty good pass. He wasn't terrific at reading. He wasn't a whiz-bang at math. But for him, education was leading straight down a pretty good path. He didn't find school too exciting, but he wanted to do pretty well. He did have trouble with reading, and no one taught him to spell. In doing arithmetic problems, pretty good was regarded as fine. 5 and 5 needn't always add up to 10. A pretty good answer was 9. The pretty good student was happy with the standards that were in effect, and nobody was sappy if his answers were not quite correct. The pretty good student, in fact, was part of a pretty good mob. The first time he knew he lacked was when he looked for a pretty good job. It was then that he saw the position. He discovered that life could be tough, and he soon had a sneaking suspicion pretty good might not be good enough. The pretty good town in our story was part of a pretty good state, which had pretty high aspirations and prayed for a pretty good fate. There once was a pretty good nation, pretty proud of the greatness it had, but who learned much too late, if you want to be great, pretty good is in fact pretty bad. Charles Osgood. I thought that was a good poem. But that's the truth. You can't be mediocre and be successful, friends. It just doesn't work. If academics and athletics were gauges of success, I'd never be standing here in front of you today, because I did not excel in either one of them. I thank the good Lord that my parents had enough sense to recognize I was never going to be a super athlete, although I wanted to be. I was never going to be a super student, although I didn't know if I wanted to be that, but I was never going to be a super student. But they helped me with enthusiasm and love, and they kept pushing me. You're looking at today the most successful person you'll ever see. Maybe not in terms of money, but in terms of getting paid for doing something I dearly love to do. I'm going to tell you something very profound. If you do not dearly love what you're doing, you'll never be successful. I don't care how much money you make, how much money you have. If you don't love what you're doing, you'll never be successful. I believe you've got to have role models, and you've got to have mentors. I call it simply believing in heroes. It doesn't matter whether it's your big brother or your dad or your mom or a teacher or your friend or anybody, but everybody in this room to be successful has got to have some heroes they can count on. We talk about athletes as being heroes, and I wonder sometimes whether athletes are really heroes, because most of the time they're there just for their athletic abilities, and that's wrong. I have nothing against an athlete being a hero if that person is doing something to make this world a better place. But if they're not, then don't have them as your heroes, friends. I've been so lucky to have a mom and dad that's helped me all along my life, has been heroes to me. You know, you only got one mom and dad for a lifetime. You better tell them you appreciate them, because, buddy, when they're gone, they're gone. They ain't no more. And I tell you, they're very special people. Mine are special. My parents have never, ever been on the front page of the newspaper, have never been on the 6 o'clock news, but every person that comes in contact with my mom or my dad comes away a little bit better knowing that they knew them. And that's the way it should be. That's what I'd like to be. I want people to say, well, oh, Bob, he's a good guy. He didn't know a whole lot, but if we needed him, if we could count on him, if I had something that I needed Bob to help me with, I guarantee you I could count on Bob, and that's the way it ought to be, folks. That's what believing in heroes is all about. If you don't get anything else out of what I said tonight, take the time to tell people that you appreciate them. There's been an awful lot of people that's enabled every one of you to be here tonight, that's done things for you coming up. And you need to take the time to tell them you appreciate them before it's too late. You never know. This is a fast-moving world, and you just never know. If anybody in this room knew they only had 5 minutes left to live, I guarantee you, you'd be fighting to get out of here to get to your car or get to a phone so you can call the people that you love and tell them how much you love them and how much they mean to you and what they've done for you and just what they mean to you in your scheme of life. And that's the way it should be. Bette Midler sang a song recently in the hit movie Beaches, which kind of sums up what I'm talking about heroes. I don't sing, but I'm gonna bellow out a little bit, and we'll see what happens. Did you ever know that you're my hero? You're everything I'd like to be. I can fly higher than an eagle. You are the wind beneath my wings. It might have appeared to go unnoticed, but I've got it right here in my mind. I want you to know I know the truth. I would be nothing without you. If I could tell my mom and dad and the people that's helped me along the way, long life's way, maybe just one thing, besides I love you, which would be the first, it'd be that chorus line. Did you ever know that you're my hero? You're everything I want to be. I can fly higher than an eagle because you, God love you, you are the wind beneath my wings. I close every talk with a challenge, a moment of truth, if you will. Everybody in this room's got the opportunity to be the greatest success imaginable. But it's up to you. Nobody can do it for you. It's all up to you and how you view life and how you help others. If you make other people laugh and you help other people, I guarantee you'll be a success in life. I want to thank you for letting me come talk to you today. It's been a pleasure for me. May you always have a hero to help you through your tough times. And may you always be the wind beneath the wings of the people you love. Thank you. Good night. I appreciate it so much.
To have Bob Mann spice up your next meeting, write Bob Robert Mann, Post Office Box 617, Helena, Alabama 35080, or telephone area code 205-664-3634.